Today I'm getting ready to install my clutch and my bell housing. And the first thing I was going to do is put these dowel pins in the block, but they had like a zinc coating on them, or for some reason they weren't going in there very well, and I couldn't fit them into the bell housing either. So I took a little bit of sandpaper, just sanded them down like this, took several minutes until it fits in there nicely, and it fits both sides pretty snug, so snug that it makes air suction and pressure, so I think that's pretty good. And then I took the same piece of sandpaper, rolled it up, and just wound it inside the dowel pin hole a little bit, wiped it out with a rag, and now I'm going to try to hammer this one in like this side went in, and this one went in pretty nice, so hopefully the second one goes as well. Alright, bell housing touches on those sides. So now I'll pull it back off. I'll get my dial indicator set up and start measuring the run out with this centering run out measurement tool I got. Last thing I'm going to do before I get the bell housing mocked up is I'm going to take this piece of sandpaper and just lightly go over the whole surface it's going to mount to, because there's a little bit of rust here, a little bit of leftover paint from when the block was painted, and then I'll take a rag and parts cleaner and wipe that down just so the mating surface is nice and clean. There's no impurities on there, because in addition to measuring the run out, I'm also going to measure the parallel of the flywheel to the face of the bell housing as well. So I'm going to get to that. So much for getting the clutch in today. I bolted my bell housing on and took my measurements, and I was not getting the measurements I was looking for. So I removed and installed it several times, and I just found that I kept replicating the same measurements. So I feel like the consistent measurements are most likely accurate. What I found was when I was trying to measure for a concentric bell housing, had the dial indicator reading off of the inside surface of this lip. It was mounted to the flywheel just like it is now, and I spun the motor over until I found the part farthest away from the center, which was about the 1 o'clock position. I zeroed the gauge and cranked the motor over until I got a maximum reading opposite that, about the 7 o'clock position at 12 thousandths. 12 thousandths divided by 2 is 6 thousandths, meaning that's what my run out is, and the spec calls for 5 thousandths or less. So I ordered some offset dowel pins. They're going to move it 7 thousandths. So if I subtract that from this, that's going to be 5 thousandths total indicator reading, meaning my run out is half of that. So I should be 2.5 thousandths run out by the time I readjust. The next reading I took was for parallel from this surface to the surface of the flywheel, and I used the same method to zero the gauge and then crank the motor over to find my largest reading, which was coincidentally also at the 7 o'clock position, and I'm 8 thousandths out away from the motor here. Which is quite a bit out of spec. I was hoping to be 2 thousandths or less, and I believe to repair this, I'm gonna have to send my bell housing off to a machine shop and ask them to grind a taper in it, taking 8 thousandths off this side and down to nothing on that side. So until next time, it's been a couple days since I've been at the car, and I brought my bell housing to a machine shop that told me that 8 thousandths was too little to make an adjustment for. So I called Bowler Performance Transmissions. They told me also that for my application and my motor and everything that it's not necessary to get down below that, but for concentricness, I still needed to get these offset dowel pins. So I got Lakewood 7 thousandths offset, marked it with a pen. We got Kyle here helping me clean out the holes for the dowel pins to go in, and once we get it installed, I'll take another measurement and hopefully we'll be dead on. So with the help of my temporarily disabled friend Kyle here, we got the bell housing mounted on the offset dowels, got the dial indicator hooked up and zeroed out, and the biggest total indicator reading was 4 thousandths. So now my run out is 2 thousandths, and that is within the spec of 5. So I'm very happy. So now I could take all this apart, get my clutch installed, and then reassemble all this back together knowing that it will be properly aligned.